Hi, I'm Marty Grimes from Santa Clara Valley Water District, and welcome to this episode of The People Behind Your Water. This month we're going to be talking to two folks who work out in our field in reservoirs and percolation ponds, and they're going to talk about a really interesting project that we're doing this year because of the drought. We have the opportunity to really improve some of our recharge ponds. We have 400 acres of groundwater recharge ponds in Santa Clara County, and those are an essential part of our water supply. We pump every year. Almost half of our water is pumped from the ground, and that water is only there because of our groundwater recharge system. And these ponds that are throughout the county, some of them haven't been really maintained in many years because they're filled with water, and you can't get all the sediment out of the bottom. So the Desilt project that we're going to talk about is one of the things we're doing to improve our percolation ponds, so that when the rains do come, our system is going to work as effectively as ever, because we want to be able to replenish our groundwater as soon as possible after this drought hopefully ends. And after we talk to Jerry Sparkman and Chad Grande, we're going to talk to Jerry de la Piedra, who runs our water conservation programs at the district, and we're going to talk about how we're doing in reaching our 20% target for water use reductions. And he's going to talk about some of the water conservation programs that we have available to help people. So please stay tuned. We are here this morning with Jerry Sparkman and Chad Grande from the Water District. You're in two different divisions, really.
Yes.
Our watersheds division, and you're in
the water resources section.
In our water utility area. So we're at a water utility facility, which is our groundwater recharge systems. This is part of we got the Camden ponds over to our left, and this is the Page
Desilt basin, yes. Desilt basin.
And tell us what the Desilt basin is for.
Well, basically this is the first pond in the Page Pond series, and what we do is we bring in imported water and local water sources here, and it meanders down the creek, comes into this large pond which has...
So it's Los Gatos Creek, so it's water coming from Lexington and Vasona reservoirs.
Yes.
It comes down here.
Comes into this pond, and it slows the velocity of the water, and it allows the sediments that are suspended in the water column to actually drop out and settle on the bottom of the basin before the water actually comes back out of this pond back into another ditch that goes to the Page, Sunny Oaks, and Bud system.
So the point of we're diverting water from the creek or from imported water to get into the system so it can recharge into our groundwater basins, and you want that water to be as clear as possible to have the most efficient percolation?
Well, it helps on the efficiency, but it also helps reduce the amount of times that we have to clean the ponds. The more we have to clean them, the deeper ponds get, and then we have to later on do some kind of a revamp project on the ponds because they get too deep, and they start scouring and getting a lot more erosion. Now, by removing as much of the sediments before it gets to the pond, it lessens us having to go in and dry these ponds up and go through a cleaning process where we'll go in and remove anywhere from 4 to 6 inches off the bottom of the pond and scrape the sides.
Which is what we're doing at almost all the ponds this year with the drought.
Doing the entire recharge system throughout the valley this year.
So the point of this pond, you slow down the water. It goes through these sections so that the water slow down, the sediments fall to the bottom. Yeah. And you were telling me that there's actually some you give it a little help with chemicals? Yeah,
during the winter months when the turbidity or the amount of sediments in the water is really high, we'll actually reduce the velocity or reduce our flow rates coming in, and we'll treat it with a polymer. Mm-hmm. And that polymer basically acts like a magnet to the sediment particles and makes them heavier so they drop out quicker. Mm-hmm. So we may come in with 60 NTU, which is a way of saying how much sediment is in the water. We may come in with 60 and add an ounce a minute of chemical, and when we come out, we're under 10 NTU. And so that difference between where it comes in and goes out is a major improvement to the ponds downstream.
All right. So what was the problem with the way this desilt pond was running before? What was the problem?
Well, one of the majority of the problems was the erosion that we had around the corner of the banks. It actually had eroded away so bad that it was going around the fencing. So the water would come in and it would just go straight through to your outlet spillway. So the water wasn't meandering through like it's supposed to do. And so we also had problems with the old redwood fencing, so the posts would rot out, the fencing material itself would warp, and we'd have gaps in between the panels, so we would have to come in and put plastic vinyl sheeting over it, and that sheeting would break down over a number of years, and then you'd get dry cycle where we'd actually shut the water off. That fencing would warp and bend and pop the nails out, and then the boards would fall on the ground, so we'd have to come in and redo the whole system and make sure all the panels were good.
All right. So completely different system now, and the idea of what we're looking at here was your concept?
Well, this was the original configuration. This pond was built back way before I was here, back in the late 60s, I believe. But it's worked, but not very efficiently with the old system. With this new vinyl sheeting that we're doing, that Chad and his unit are putting in, there's hardly any gaps in the system, so the water is forced to go through and meander through this whole system, rather than short-cutting and short-circuiting across the system.
So much more effective. But it was your idea.
Yeah.
Take credit.
It's Chad and my idea.
All right, so we're going to call this the Jerry and Chad Desilt basin from now on. So Chad, you had some challenges in this project?
Yeah, there was some challenges on the installation process of the vinyl sheet piles. The intent was to drive them in, originally to have a contractor install them and drive the sheet piles in. There was some budget issues and they were unable to get a contractor to do it, so we attempted to do it. And once we started, we found that there was the much larger cobbles in the soil here than we had anticipated, and could not drive the vinyl sheet piles in. They would just shatter when they hit the large cobbles. So we changed methods and went to trenching, and trenched them in with an excavator, dug a trench and assembled. Instead of driving them in individually, we assembled units of 5 sheet piles to a unit and laid 5 at a time, and then backfilled them as we went. The efficiency is fairly close to driving them. It's just a different method of installing them. It's very labor intensive. We have a total of between the desilting basin here and the other site on the Page Ponds at Hacienda, we have about 2,000 lineal feet of this to install. So it'll take a number of months, but the end result is similar. Doesn't matter if we trench it in or drove it in with the vibrating driver. But this will last a couple of lifetimes versus the redwood system that had to be replaced about every 10 years. And like Jerry said, this has virtually no leakage whatsoever, and it'll stop the erosion around the perimeter and be very, very durable.
Great. How deep are each of these sheets buried?
There's an average embedment of about 7 feet. Depends, some of the profiles are different around the side and also in the interior walls, but the average embedment's about 7 feet.
That's deeper than I would have figured. And over here, when the water first comes in, we got a bunch of boulders. Was that a design element before?
Yeah, that we also in the process of replacing the fencing, cleaned the pond, and that required us to remove all the boulders, and those are to dissipate the energy of the water coming into the system, so we don't have any erosion in the system that's contributing turbidity to the water, the recharge water. But we removed all the rock, cleaned the whole entire pond, then put the rock back in.
So you recycled this rock?
Yeah, it's the same rock that was there before. We just pulled it out and then cleaned all the sediments out and put it back in.
So, as Jerry said, we're doing this type of work, cleaning our ponds this year with the drought. So your crew's been really busy.
Yeah, we're super busy. There's a lot of this work, and a lot of it's been deferred, but we're taking advantage of the dry year and doing as much repairs as possible, anticipating, that there will be wet years coming, and then we won't have to take them down. We'll be able to recharge for many years without having to do any maintenance.
Right. So the end result is that the recharge ponds will be more effective once the rains come, and maintenance will be sort of taken care of for a good while.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Well, that's the great things going on. We're sort of making the best of a rough situation with a dry year to take care of some maintenance and work that hasn't been done for many years. So you'll see these guys out and their crews out all through the summer and probably into the fall too.
Yep. Absolutely, we'll be in the winter, and we're taking care of a lot of stuff and making improvements in the process. And it's nice to be able to have the time and not be in a rush. Usually, when we do this kind of work, there's a lot of pressure from Jerry's group to get it done as quickly as possible because we have water to recharge and they need to get it in the ground. And fortunately, now we don't have that pressure, so we're able to do a lot more and do a better job of it.
All right. Well, thank you for showing us the project. Thank you for your crews for being out here on a really hot day. We're going to go back inside because I'm a wimp, and so we're going to get in the air conditioning. But thanks a lot.
You bet. Thank you.
We're here now at Page Ponds, where the desilt basin flows eventually down to this ditch, the Page Ditch. I got that right?
Yes.
And this is the problem. We got a erosion problem here.
Yeah. You'll notice on both sides of the roadway here that the road's actually sloughed off over the number of years. And so what we're going to do is come in and put a sheet pile wall on the ditch side and widen this road back up to about 25 feet to provide access for large equipment and stuff.
So right now it looks like it's about 10 feet?
Yeah, it's about 10 feet wide. You can just barely drive a truck down it.
Okay, so Chad, how are you going to approach this job?
This is the second site where we're going to utilize the vinyl sheet piles. We're gonna drive in or trench in the vinyl sheet piles about 8 feet off of the road here. They will be tied back into the road with rods and concrete anchors, so it will withstand the heavy loading of the equipment in the trucks that are used in this area to maintain the ponds. We're going to build this wall around the outboard side of this thing, add about 8 feet to the width of it, and also stabilize it so that for years to come we won't have to do any maintenance on it and it'll be stable.
That sounds significantly more permanent and established than what we have here, which was built how many years ago?
Yes, and it's the process of the installation here is much more involved. Because the concrete anchors are about 2,000 pounds. They have to be trenched in and buried, but they anchor the wall and create a lot of stability for it, so it won't fail.
All right. Well, we look forward to seeing this one done. It's a little hairy even driving down here today. Imagine in the winter when you got to do something out here and there's water on both sides. It might be kind of a scary situation.
Yeah,
Soft.
it is very soft. It's got a sharp shoulder on it. You really have to pay attention when you're driving through here, or you end up either in the ditch or in the pond. And as you can see, the pond's quite deep when it's full of water, and you don't want to be in there.
All right. Well, another good example of some good work we're doing this summer. So thank you both for showing us this erosion issue will be taken care of by the winter.
Santa Clara Valley Water District presents Lawn Care Secrets for a Better World. Lawn owners, stop overwatering. Your grass is not as thirsty as you think. Just 1 minute less saves you 20 gallons. And don't stop there. Water before 5 a.m. and save 20 gallons every time. A little lawn know-how saves 20,000 gallons a year. And that's just your lawn. Now about those pink flamingos. For a better world, save 20 gallons today.
So I'm here with Jerry de la Piedra, who's the program administrator over our water conservation programs. And we last spoke to you, Jerry, for this show in January, and a heck of a lot has changed since then, right?
Yeah, a lot has happened. The board of directors, the Santa Clara Valley Water District Board of Directors has since called for 20% reduction in water use throughout the county compared to 2013. And then we've recommended that the cities, the retailers in the county all implement mandatory measures in order to reach that target.
And that's a really, really common question is, are we in mandatory or are we in voluntary restrictions right now? So how do we answer that?
It's a difficult question to answer, as you can imagine, and so we don't have the authority to call for mandatory, so we set the target and then we leave it up to the retailers to determine how best to meet that target. And it does vary throughout the county. Some retailers are calling for 10% voluntary, some are calling for 20% and have used the word mandatory, so it does vary.
Yeah, and why would some call for 10% if our board has called for 20?
It depends on their sources of supply. So some of them purchase part of their water from the district. Some of them don't purchase any water from the district. And the ones that don't get water from the district or they get it from another source, that wholesaler, which is San Francisco Public Utilities Commission, is only calling for 10% voluntary right now. So they have determined that it doesn't make sense for them to call for 20%.
So these are the cities in the northern part of the county, Palo Alto, Milpitas, part of some Mountain View and northern San Jose.
Yeah, exactly. Palo Alto, Stanford, Santa Clara, Milpitas, Sunnyvale, Mountain View.
So we've been calling for conservation since the end of February, but now since the end of March, it's been 20% for at least what our board has called for. You've gotten some results? What have you seen so far?
Yeah, we're tracking the savings on a monthly basis, and so February through April, we're seeing about a 13% reduction, and that's a cumulative number, so it's the 3 months combined.
So 13%, we asked for 20%. Were you disappointed? Have you been disappointed with that number?
No, I'm not disappointed. It's going to take a little bit of time to build up to the 20%, and so we're making progress. We started at about I think we're at about 10%, then we went up to 12%, and then 13%. So we're building up towards that 20%, and it takes time. You have to build up momentum. You have to get the word out, get the education out. It takes a little time for the retailers to get their, go to their city council, adopt ordinances, put restrictions in place. So I think as long as we keep building that momentum, we'll make progress towards the 20%.
So what kinds of restrictions are in place in some of these cities or retail areas?
It really does vary by city. We do have on our drought page on our website, we do have links to the city web pages where you can see what restrictions are in place in your service area. A lot of the cities have permanent water waste measures or prohibitions in place, so no runoff, no overwatering the sidewalk, fixing leaks within a certain time period, things like that. No washing cars without a shutoff nozzle, restaurants only serving water on request, things like that.
So is there any enforcement penalty for not doing those things, breaking the rules?
At this time, it's mostly through outreach or education. Notify the customer or the end user that they're in violation of a restriction, and then try to work with them to be in compliance. And so that we have various programs, technical assistance, rebate programs to assist them. But if things don't improve, if we don't reach the 20%, and it looks like next year is going to be dry, then we can expect more severe restrictions in the future.
And what would that look like? What's sort of that next step if we don't make that 20% still a dry year? What kinds of things might we expect that retailers or even the water district might do?
There's a variety of things that are on the table. It could be only watering 2 days a week, for instance, or 1 day a week if it gets really bad, or if it gets really bad, if we get into severe stage, then it could be no irrigation at all.
Wow.
We're hoping that we don't get to that point, obviously, but it could come. It could also only 15 minutes per station or 10 minutes per station. So we think that a lot of the savings is going to need to come from the landscape sector, and so a lot of the restrictions are going to focus on the landscape area.
And because it's on the landscape area and because it's outdoors, the summer is really the time when it seems like that's the time it's either going to make us or break us. We can either go really use way too much water and come nowhere near the 20%, or it's the time that people really can make a big difference by doing some things with their landscape.
Yeah, these next couple months are going to be key to reaching the 20%, as you mentioned. I think over 50 to 60% of a typical house uses their water outdoors in the landscape sector. So these next couple months, especially if it's going to be warm or a hot summer, are going to be really telling to whether we meet that 20% target or not. So the district has, we've increased our rebates for landscape conversion. We're going to have a big push summer campaign that is going to be promoting brown is the new green, or I'm down with brown, to really promote people that have let their lawns stress a little bit, but they'll come back next year with watering, but may have little brown spots or whatnot in their lawns. And so we're going to have signs for people to really promote and showcase that.
Yeah. Speaking of that, it seems to me that when people say, how do I save 20%? I've been doing a lot, whatever. It seems to me that if you just go out to your controller, your irrigation controller, if you have one, and cut it by 20%, that's probably going to make your 20%. Do a little inside as well, or maybe cut it by 30%, or cut it to 2 days a week, maybe if you're at 4 days a week or 5 days a week.
Yeah, anybody that has an irrigated landscape can, in my opinion, can easily make the 20%. Like you said, reduce their controller by 20%. Take shorter showers, a couple other things inside, and you'll meet the target. So it really shouldn't be that difficult for most people.
And to boast a little bit about the water district, we're looking at some of our, behind us, some fairly dry weather landscaping here. We don't have grass on our campus here. Yet we have been able to save 33%, I believe, from February through April, just by these simple measures of cutting landscape watering. We beat the 20%, so anybody should be able to do that, right?
Yeah, exactly. We cut our irrigation off and started it late, and then when we did turn it on, we cut it back by 20%. And so, like you said, I think we're saving 33, 34%.
About the lawn use, you have some tips for people of how to keep their lawn okay, like you said, suffering a little bit. But what are some of those tips that you have on? For people that do have a lawn, aren't ready to really tear it out and don't want it to completely die off?
Yeah, good question. We're actually working on an outreach piece right now that we're going to be hopefully releasing next week, that's going to have lawn care during a drought. For people that, like you said, they have a lawn, they want to keep the lawn, but they can let it stress a little bit during the drought, and then it will come back in the future. And so the key things are, cut back by 20%. Your lawn it can survive with less water. It'll be okay. And then make sure that your irrigation system is irrigating properly. So check your sprinkler heads, the nozzles, make sure they're not watering the sidewalk or the hardscape, things like that. Irrigate to the season, and not just don't put your summer schedule and leave that all year round. Make sure you go and you check your controller, and when it starts to cool, turn down it even further. And so make these simple changes, and you'll be able to save the 20%.
So people can go to our website and see that those lawn tips soon. We'll have those up on our website. And I understand that your programs have been, your phone's ringing off the hook. You're doing really well with expanding the programs that your program offers.
Yeah, it's just going gangbusters right now. At the beginning of the year, I think we were seeing a 200% increase, and then it was a 300% increase, and now it's a 500% increase. And like you said, our phones are ringing off the hook. We're having a lot of participation in the program, which is what we want. I mean, this is exactly what the program is designed for, and why we increased the rebate to $2 a square foot.
Right. So for the landscape conversion, and other rebates have been increased. So truly, and I've been saying this a lot, that this is the best time. If you've ever thought about taking advantage of a water conservation program, it's never been a better time than to call the Water District right now. See what's available. Get a WaterWise house call. That's a good first step.
Yeah, that's an excellent point, because the higher rebates that we have right now are temporary. They're only going to be here during the drought. So, call us, sign up, get into our programs now before the higher rebates end. And our Waterwise House Call, it's a great program. It's a free program. We'll send a trained technician to a person's home. We'll do a thorough evaluation, both indoor and outdoor. Everywhere they're using water, basically, we'll do an evaluation for them and show them where they can save and how they can meet the 20% target.
Okay, well, I think that's a good update for now. I think it's really going to be interesting to see if we can make that 20%. A lot of things are going on, like you said, campaign, we're doing programs, all the retailers are putting things in place, so hopefully the community will be responding and we'll be in a fairly decent situation by the end of the year. Yeah,
because we don't know what 2015, if it's another dry year, then we have to enter it in as best shape as we can.
What about El Nino?
El Nino, what I'm hearing though is it's been downgraded to a weak to moderate El Nino, and even then it's still a 50-50 chance of whether it's going to be wet or dry. So we can't count on that, and we can't plan for that.
All right, so don't plan on El Nino saving the day. If it does, that's wonderful, but we're not banking on that. We're trying to plan for the worst. And thank you, Jerry, for the update, and maybe we'll talk to you in a couple months.
Thank you.
So those are a few of the things that we're doing at Santa Clara Valley Water District to respond to this exceptional drought. And I mean exceptional because almost a third of our state in California is at the far end of the spectrum in drought. It's called an exceptional drought. And we're really busy, and one of the things that we're hoping that you'll do is consider getting busy as well by taking advantage of our water conservation programs. One of the programs that Jerry talked about is the landscape conversion program, and we have on our YouTube channel at youtube.com/valleywater a series of videos that show you what that landscape conversion program looks like from beginning to end. It'll really help if you're interested in taking the plunge and ripping out your lawn and putting in a beautiful drought-tolerant landscape. So thanks for joining us. We'll see you next month.